Well, last hour we spoke to Dr. John Bruni from think tank Sage International for a more detailed look at the deadly attack in London. He claimed there is nothing Islamic about the terror attacks.
Unfortunately, by dint of always being able to publicise the misdeeds of these individuals, and let me say something quite clearly here, there is nothing Islamic about the actions of random violence perpetrated by people who are criminally deranged, as we've seen in London, as we've seen in Manchester, as we've seen in Paris and elsewhere. These people do not deserve to be linked to Islam in any way, shape or form. As a matter of fact, one could say that they are, heretics in their own mindset, and using the Arabic word there, majnoon, which is insane. This is something that is really a policing effort that needs to be looked at from a mental health perspective more than anything else at all. I can also point out that there is a huge academic literature out there that also suggests that mental health plays a huge role in seeing the pathology of people who are obviously deranged, moving into the lone wolf territory, or finding fellow travellers on the dark web and trying to perpetrate atrocities. This is also something that's out there in the public domain, and no one wants to talk about it. This is the uncomfortable truth. What we're doing is we're literally militarising a response to what is a critically important mental health issue.
No, Dr. Bruni, it is not the uncomfortable truth. After an 18-month inquiry into the Lint Cafe siege in which 2 hostages were killed, Manmonis was found by the State Coroner Michael Barnes not to be deranged. In fact, the police, relying on the evidence of an unqualified psychiatrist that he was mentally ill or was not inspired in any way by Islamic ideology, was found to be wrong and a huge error on the day. This is a dangerous idea that we should just whitewash religion out of this completely. Yes, not all Muslims are terrorists. Most reasonable people understand that, but we can't dismiss the fact that Islam has a big part to do with these attacks. In the most recent London attacks, they were shouting out, "We're doing this for Allah." That's a clue there and then, isn't it, Stacey?
Well, Caroline, I think it's really dangerous to dismiss the arguments of Dr. John Bruni and also a lot of other intellectuals that have come out. You said this is an argument we hear time and time again. And the reason we hear this argument time and time again is because it carries some validity with it. Dr. John Bruni has been researching and he's been on boards. He's worked in London. He's worked in the UAE. He's been doing this for longer than probably you and I have even been alive. So we can't dismiss these arguments of these intellectuals and of these people who know more about this than you and I do.
I disagree on the point of these terrorists are deranged. An inquest found that wasn't the case with a terror attack here. It is a dangerous ideology, Stacey, and when we're hearing from the boss of the ASIO, who knows better than anyone that this has to do with Sunni Islam ideology, we need to listen.
Yeah, absolutely we need to listen to the boss of ASIO, but just because one man who held however many people hostage in one cafe in Sydney wasn't found in an inquest which occurred 18 months after the incident to be deranged doesn't mean that every terrorist who goes on an attack... Just because one incident in Sydney, the man involved was found not to have a mental health issue, doesn't mean that everybody involved in any of these incidents across the world are not deranged. That's just not, that's not a valid argument.
What's there to be gained from this, though, Caroline? What is there to be gained, though, by amplifying the fact that there is a link?
Well, trying to talk to these communities and speak to them about radicalisation, because burying our heads in the sand... You don't think that's occurring at the moment? Well, clearly it's not working properly because we keep seeing these attacks again and again.
And how do you propose to do that if we're claiming...
So we should
Islamophobic, and how do you propose to do that, to go into these communities and talk about radicalisation when you're the one sitting here on the TV saying we shouldn't let them into the country, saying we agree with Pauline Hanson and Donald Trump?
I never said that, Stacey. That is a lie. I've never agreed with the ban on Muslims coming into the country. I say that 49% of Australians out there do agree, and that's because they're sick of leaders pussyfooting around the issue and the denialism that we hear from so-called experts like Dr. Bruni. That's why they're being driven to these populist ideas. I've never once agreed with the ban.
Okay, all right, maybe you have an agreement there, and I take that back.
Can I talk about some of the figures, guys, that have actually come out? This is an article I found in The Australian. It was from last year, talking about our migration policy in Australia. It says, if I can quote, our migration policy is entirely focused on attracting skilled and family reunion migrants from countries such as India, now Australia's #1 source of permanent migrants, 34,000 arrivals, also China, 27,000 arrivals. And so therefore, Buddhists now make up 2.5% of the population. Muslims are at 2.2%. My question to you, Caroline, about your comments and also what we heard from the doctor a little earlier. And I'm like you, I can't stand political correctness. I can't really see the point unless there's any evidence that, in fact, it can make things worse. I don't understand how labelling someone during a terrorist incident actually goes one way or another, other than knowing who to be able to call in. We saw there were issues with a police psychologist. We saw there were issues with a negotiator during the Link Cafe siege, which simply was that they didn't know enough. And we heard also from, I believe it was the Chief Commissioner of New South Wales Police, after that inquest came out, saying there's only really a handful of negotiators in this country who actually know how to deal with these people. So I think that seems to be an issue.
But that's exactly the point. You've nailed it in your question. It goes incredibly to how we deal with these operations. One of the problems that the coroner highlighted with the Lint Cafe inquest is that police kept trying to negotiate with Man Monis because they were getting advice from the psychiatrist that he wasn't a serious Islamic terrorist, that he had some sort of mental health issues, that he wasn't to be taken seriously, that he would injure someone. Obviously, that wasn't the case. He was committing this in the name of Islamic terror, as so many of these so-called lone wolf attackers do. Not that the London attacks or the Manchester attacks were lone wolf. There were a number of people who were involved in these, and quite often other people know about them. The coroner found he wasn't deranged. He was an Islamic terrorist. It was a terror attack. We need to, of course, discuss the facts openly, and discussing facts isn't Islamophobic. Discussing the fact that this is rooted in an extreme form of Muslim ideology is not Islamophobic, and it isn't going to help anyone.
All right, Caroline, we've heard the thoughts of you and the panel. We're keen to know what you think at home as well. #TheMorningShift, or email us your say at skynews.com.au.